Get ready for 2 hours of hard-hitting football talk, straight from their jocks about the jocks. It's Football on the Know with Jim and Joe.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Football on the Know. I'm Jim McPhee, and alongside of me is Mr. Joe DeCapita.
What's going on, know-it-alls? Welcome back for another edition of Football on the Know show. And if you've noticed, some things have changed in the studio. Now you're able to see our whole display of the table here. You get to see our beautiful logo down there.
Absolutely, yeah. It looks really nice here.
A little bit more of the studio.
Yeah, we're trying it out a little different. We are a little further away, so you seem a little smaller, but that's fine for everybody out there. That way you don't need to see up close with everything and stuff unless we zoom in like we do. We've got the different cameras, camera 1, camera 2 going on for us.
Yeah, and if you're new to the show, do us a favor. Do us a huge favor. It really helps out our show. It helps out our channel on YouTube. If you go to search on YouTube or Facebook, Football on the Know Show, become a member on Facebook. You can follow us there. Also on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button for us. And then that notification bell, hit that up so then it'll let you guys know when we go live. Listen, we have a huge it's been what am I trying to say here? It's been a huge
surge?
Trying to say something. Huge something, but it's been huge.
Okay.
But anyway,
it's been great.
Tripping over
the
my
big
words
run
here.
that we've been doing for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
But, recently, I don't know if you're trying to say, there's been a surge of more people joining our group and stuff like that. So we're trying to expand the best way we can, and that is with you guys out there.
Popped in my head. A huge honor is what I was trying to say. For all the people that have been supporting us in the past 2-3 weeks. We've gotten a huge, influx of a bunch of members now, especially on YouTube, more than Facebook. But
oh wow,
we got a contest coming up soon, and we haven't announced it yet. But we're gonna let you guys hold on a little bit. But it is gonna involve a lot of you on Facebook, so keep that in mind.
Absolutely, we are asking for your help out there, and we will we will tell you what's going on with that in the near future and let you guys know. But all right, the big news, I guess, that's going on, because there's not a whole lot going on in the NFL right now. We've had the draft, and we talked about the reactions from where these guys are going, the best fits, how they where they had done, what they had done, who they picked, and also, we didn't exactly do grades, but how we felt about a lot of these picks. All right, now that's all said and done, there's still some holes that need to be filled by some of these teams, that they didn't tackle it early on in free agency, but then now post-draft, where there's a lot of free agents, good free agents out there that can still help out a lot of teams here. So we're going to take a look at the top free agents that are still available, and we'll just kind of discuss some teams that might be interested. We've already heard from Ian Rappaport and others, saying teams that have been on the phone talking about some of these free agents and where they might go, as opposed to even what best fits, even of teams that aren't even really interested right now, but where they could potentially go to as well. And first, I guess we'll still I just want to talk about James Bradbury first. I mean, we've got Odell Beckham Jr. and things like that, but he's got the injury he's coming back from, and there's some stuff there. But just recently, again, the New York Giants release James Bradbury after trying to find trade partners in this whole thing. And we've heard a few teams that were out there kicking it around, stuff like that, but I guess a deal just wasn't done because also it wasn't going to work out, I guess, with money-wise. So can't get the value that they wanted for trade, so they had to dump the money, though. So eventually now you have to release players like this to try and free up some of this cap space, where the Giants were struggling here in cap space still from bad deals that were made by Dave Gettleman in the previous regime. So now this regime has to come in and try and fix what has been done there. And Bradbury's a casualty there, but now he's available, a stud corner. What teams could possibly be available to jump on this guy? I mean, I've heard even the Eagles' names kicked around, which I hope to God that doesn't happen, being a Giants fan, that even after seeing what they had done in the draft and with the trades and getting A.J. Brown too as well, I can't imagine seeing James Bradbury now on the other side again to face us too as well. That would be horrible for me.
Well, the thing with Bradbury is he is a veteran. He's a 29-year-old corner. He's still playing at a really high level of football for his position. So it's like, but with the Giants, what they want to do is they want to clear more cap space. And what better way to do that is with your veterans that are making a lot of money that you don't want to pay them anymore. So listen, you going into the season was looking to get paid $10 million. The Giants wanted to free up some cap space there, so they end up, axing them, cutting them off the roster, and that saves them $10 million right now. And they could turn that money into multiple players that are still available in free agency. And this is one of the deepest free agencies that I've ever even seen, since I've been following football. You know what I mean? So to me, it's surprising on how much talent is still available. However, who is available right now is a lot of veterans. That's pretty much all you're getting right now. You're getting 29. There's a sprinkled in there 27-year-olds or whatever, but they're all good players. They all could contribute to some NFL team and help the roster out. So Bradbury kind of falls right in line now. He's easily top 5 type of free agent now. That he becomes available. So if a team is in need of corners, and we know there's a lot of them, even after the draft, some teams addressed it, some teams didn't address it as early, and maybe they're still looking. And so now here comes Bradbury. He's available. Let's see what team ends up getting him, because there is a boatload of teams that could really use cornerback help right now.
Yeah, and some of the teams that were mentioned, again, the Texans could be one of those teams too. They're always looking for guys too, because how depleted that roster has been after going through their whole overhaul and things like that. So they are a team that's interested. But again, now him being a free agent, he's able to pick where he goes to as well, and what the contract might be. And that's a benefit to him too, because if they were able to find a trade partner before with the New York Giants, whatever they were going to do was going to benefit them the most. And he wasn't exactly going to be happy where he was. It would probably just, restructure his deal or whatever.
And part of it was the Giants wanted too much for Bradbury versus the amount of money he was going to get paid. Mm-hmm. So teams that were looking for help, maybe even pursuing Bradbury, they didn't like that number. They didn't want to pay him $10 million either. But at the same time, I think teams were willing to give up a low round pick, but the Giants wanted kind of like a middle round type of pick. Maybe they wanted a 4th rounder or something like that, where teams weren't acclimated to do that because of his age and the uncertainty of his future now. Like, he's still a really good football player. However, you can't predict injuries. You can't predict decline in play. So because of that uncertainty, teams weren't willing to give up like a middle or like, even as high as a 3rd round pick for him. So that's why he is where he is now. But you're right. He does get to choose now what team he does sign with. And it's going to be interesting to see the new contract that gets agreed upon. Because now that teams have spent a lot of their money, there are still a few teams that are still have a ton of cap space still, but not a lot anymore. Pre-free agency, you had a boatload of teams that are all ready to sign guys. Now that we've gone through free agency, we've gone through the draft, all these rookies are now going to sign, and that's going to be about $10 million all going towards those rookies after they're all signed. Now, after that is all done, now you're looking to sign free agents that are still available that can help your football team. That's where the interesting part comes into play, where teams have got to be creative or even adding incentives to kind of entice some of these these veteran free agents to bring them aboard here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one of those teams even is, for me, I think it's really intriguing, is the Carolina Panthers. They're there with the most cap space. If you take a look at what they have, they've got $29 million here in cap space, and they're one of those teams that are kind of sneakily getting better. Again, we didn't get to see so much of Sam Darnold last year, so they had quarterback issues again because
we saw
of
5 games
and stuff.
Of Sam Darnold.
And so they have their issues here, and where it was even debated on whether they were going to get their quarterback this year or not, or they should move on. But they're one of those teams here too that was getting nice additions here to build this team up, and they could be kind of like a dark horse here with the amount of cap space that they have there to go out getting some of these free agents here, and even possibly like an Odell Beckham Jr. here too, to add even to that receiving core and make that even more deadly.
Yeah, and that's the interesting part is you got to look at teams now and where their focus would be. I think the only way that the Panthers would go after one of these wide receivers like a Landry or an Odell Beckham that are available is if they're going to get rid of a guy that's on your team. We all know they got Robbie Anderson still. They got DJ Moore still. So those are their two starting receiver options. So unless they plan on moving from them, and they just signed Robbie Anderson like not too long ago, like 2-3 years ago. So I don't see them moving on from that position to go get an Odell. But what I do see is this is an opportunity for a lot of teams that need receiver help where you have guys by the names of Julio Jones still out there, Landry still out there, Odell, with all unique situations. They all are older. You look at Julio. He's 33 years old. Can he still play? Absolutely. But the problem has always been how long is he going to last each season. So with that in mind, if there was a way where he could just guarantee you, yeah, I'll be healthy all year, you sign him to a 1-year deal, you get him out there and let him help your football team. But that's the question mark about him. So you always kind of anticipate him being injured. So it's like you can bring him in, but you already know in the back of your head, like, when is he going down? When is he going down? So we need someone else to fill in. So if you're willing to risk that, I feel like Julio Jones, is as good as he is when he's healthy, still at the age of 33. He could come onto a football team on the cheap, kind of like an incentive-laden deal where he has to prove himself. It's a 1-year deal. He's not going to get anything more than that, especially now at this point of the season. We've gone through free agency, gone through the draft. Now it's like, now you just got to find a job. Mm-hmm. That's where we're at now. Now a lot of these guys, they just got to find a job and get on the football field for a team. So Julio Jones, gifted, but a huge injury risk. Landry, solid player, not a guy that's going to take the top off of a defense, but a really, really good wide receiver that can help your receiving core. A guy can move the chains, a guy that's always going to get open for you, runs great routes, solid hands. So, and also Landry is, he's 29. He's not young either. He's still young in terms of like that age bracket of being in his prime. He's like on the latter part right now. But again, a guy that's solid, that can help you, and he doesn't get injured that often. So he could definitely help your team out. And then you got Odell. But Odell is yet again coming back from another major leg injury. And a lot of teams are interested in him. He's also 29. A lot of teams are interested in him. However, can he get back to where he was? That's the big question is, after he gets back from his injury, after he starts working out again and getting into the flow of things, is he back to 100%, and can he be that starter for you once again? So there's some risk with that and re-injury because this has happened back-to-back years now with that leg. Mm-hmm. And you got to wonder, is he going to be able to come back for a second time and be able to stay healthy now? So every player, as far as the receiving core goes for these high-end veteran receivers, they all have risks of some sort. And it's just a matter of where their number is for contracts. Mm-hmm. If it's too high, nobody's going to touch them still. But I feel like now that they've kind of realized, okay, this is where I'm at right now in my career, nobody's knocking the door down for me anymore. Mm-hmm. I got to take what I can get and make the best of it, and maybe I can turn that into a 2 or 3 year deal after this season.
Right. That's the thing. He's going to try and make it turn into a 2 or 3 year situation with best guaranteed money that he can. And that's the thing with this guy is because he's got probably some of the most upside out of a lot of these free agents that are available. When he is healthy, he is an elite wide receiver. That's the thing. Flat out wide. He's amazing. Elite. But just since a while back, I think when that first hamstring injury, when he first entered the league again, like as a rookie, it's been started. It started since then. But we saw what he was able to do when he was partnered with Eli, and then these other quarterbacks. We only saw now when he had his struggles here with Baker Mayfield. Now it really took a turn for the worse, and then again pops up with another injury or so on that team. But put him with Matthew Stafford again. And look what happens. He again starts to work at a great high level. It's just unfortunate in the Super Bowl there itself. He wasn't able to be a big part of it, which I think started out, and we talked about this before the game, he was going to be a big factor in this game. And he started out being that factor. I called him to be the MVP of the game. And I think if he stayed healthy, he probably would have been the way he was performing. But it turns out the way it goes, he's down, and then Cooper Kupp shines like he does too as well. He finally was able to come back into that game and be part of it. But Odell Beckham Jr., probably the best upside of all the free agents here. So where do you think the best landing spots are for him? Obviously, we're looking at the Rams because he just won a championship with them. He had already brought up the fact that he would even take a smaller deal to come back to them to try and run it back for a chip, and they've even said that they'd work with him, and with the injury and stuff like that, if it was taking a little while to still come back from it, they would bring him in and things like that too. But you've seen the additions that they've made. They've got Allen Robinson there too as the wide receiver position too as well, so it's not like they're struggling at wide receiver and need an Odell Beckham Jr. right now. It just makes some sense for him just because the fact that they've worked together before. They have that chemistry here with Matthew Stafford. They have a chance to go to make another run at the Super Bowl, which what he was probably looking for. But besides the Rams, we've heard also now that the Packers are probably interested in looking in one of these guys out here. What do you think the chances are maybe he goes to the Packers?
Slim. I don't think honestly the Packers have their own game plan, because after the draft we watched, the first round went by, and they had 2 first-round picks. I fully expect them to take a wide receiver to help out Aaron Rodgers, and have him develop him and work him into the lineup, and let's see where we can go with this. But they didn't take wide receiver with their first-round pick, and they didn't take wide receiver with their second first-round pick. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what Green Bay's doing. I don't know where they're going to get help for Aaron Rodgers. But it's like, after passing on those first-round talented wide receivers, in free agency they passed on wide receivers too. Mm-hmm. Now you're coming into the third stage of the offseason where it is figure out your weaknesses and try to fill those roles with veterans that are available. And if not, you have to further develop your roster to get them ready for the season. So because of the decisions that Green Bay has made thus far, I don't believe they're going to go after a guy like Odell. They drafted Christian Watson. Mm-hmm. All right, and he's a 6'4" wide receiver, very fast, timed extremely well at the combine, has good hands, still needs some work on route running, and wasn't heavily utilized in the offense in college. So he's a developmental player. But they used, I believe it was a third-round pick on him.
Yeah.
And he's going to be the guy. They also have Rodgers there, their slot guy that they drafted a year ago from Clemson. Mm-hmm. He's a guy that was progressing, especially going down the stretch of the season. He started to look like he was getting more field time. And it's like those are the guys now that are going to be passed the torch. Yes, there's going to be tons of competition between the guys that are already on the roster, versus the new guys coming in. And may the best man win. And I think that's where they're comfortable to see where they can go from there. I feel like they're going to utilize those young guys coming in, Rodgers included, at the slot receiver. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think, you never know. Randall Cobb might get cut after this training camp is done with, because Rodgers looks like he's primed to take over now. And then you bring in Watson to be that number 1 type of wide receiver. And if that works out, then everybody's going to slide down that roster. That depth chart is going to slide down. So, and that's what they want. They want the younger guys to take hold of these jobs and then move forward. So Green Bay, I'm clueless on what you're doing, but we'll have to wait and see where you end up before week 1. I just don't think Odell is a Green Bay type of player. I think he. Don't get me wrong. I think Odell could fit in any team and play remarkably well, but I don't know if he could get along with Aaron Rodgers, I guess is what I'm saying. Because Aaron Rodgers, we all know, has a huge ego. And Odell doesn't have anything, doesn't have a small ego at all. So I wonder if those two would butt heads at times if things weren't going well. And, so I think Odell, the perfect situation for him is to go to a team that has where he has a possibility to earn a starting job, but is still going to be a competitive team. I feel like that's where he's going to have to go. In Green Bay, yes. I know where you're going with that. That's exactly kind of like by definition where an opportunity could be. But I don't know, like if on a personal level, I'm not sure he fits in with that team. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's a good fit, I guess is what I'm trying to get at.
All right, so did you have a team in mind? I mean, you're talking about a guy, a team that could use him, be a possible contender, fits for him, money route. If you're looking at some of these other ones that have the best cap, they don't really need somebody like that there with them unless you look at some of again, they're not really contenders. I've heard even a dark horse because when you're looking at, I think Vegas has put up odds of some of these guys going to certain areas. I think the third best at plus 450, I think it is the Dallas Cowboys. And at like 1,200 is the Cardinals. It's funny because I read it on a Cardinals website, mm-hmm. and they're like, oh, the Cardinals were named as a chance. It's like out of 1,200, to one chances. I'm like, but I don't really see him going to the Cardinals as well. And you're trying to fit money up in areas. If you're trying to gauge in the middle that could still afford them on a low end, but still be a contender, how about something like the Colts maybe that could be trending somewhere? They've got Matt Ryan now. They're still a veteran quarterback. They've signed now the Stefan Gilmore on the defensive end, a veteran there. Seems like, with that offensive line too as well, great running back, still poised to make a push to the playoffs. And still can afford them at that rate, too, as well. I mean, some of the other ones, they just don't make a whole lot of sense.
I don't think it's a question about affording Odell at this point. Because he's had 2 back-to-back mm-hmm. injuries, he's a big, huge injury risk. And, yes, don't get me wrong, he's definitely, easily, the best free agent available right now in terms of playmaker. You know what I mean? He is a playmaker. But I don't think it's a question of affording him because any contract that he signs going forward, it's not going to be for a lot of money at all because of that injury risk that he holds with him right now. There's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be in the running for him. But, again, I don't think Odell is going to want to go to just any team. He's not going to want to go to the Houston Texans. You bring up the Colts, which I think is probably the best option right now because they're still looking for that number 1 wide receiver. I know that they drafted one. I know that they really like the younger, core group that they have in Indy, and they want to further develop them. But if you bring in, say, like an Odell Beckham right now, with Matt Ryan, who's a proven quarterback who can get the job done, and for the first time in his career, much like when, Brady didn't miss anything when he went from the Patriots to Tampa Bay. Mm-hmm. Great offensive line, either one. Matt Ryan's going from one of the worst offensive lines to one of the best offensive lines to protect him, and you add Odell to that group, there's nothing you got to be excited about it. You know what I mean? If you're a Colts fan, that would be a home run. And then it's just a matter of just cross your fingers. Just hope he doesn't get injured, because if he gets injured, that derails everything. So because of the injury risk that he holds, I think a lot of teams could afford him because that contract is not going to be very much. Mm-hmm. He's going to get paid. Don't get me wrong. He'll get paid a decent wage, but then I feel like there's going to be a lot of incentives after that. If you make the Pro Bowl, you're going to get so much money. If you get this amount of yards, you get you know what I mean? So as far as affording him, I think a lot of teams can, and especially when you manipulate the cap, because after June 1st, a lot of teams are getting even more money.
Right.
Because a lot of those cuts that they posted as post-June cuts, that money gets some extra cap space for a lot of teams there, and that's going to jumble the order big time after that hits. So as far as like a team, the Colts is a great team. You know, you look at their prime. You know, they have a good defense. They got a really good offense. They got a quarterback, a proven quarterback now. That makes a world of sense. Mm-hmm. Green Bay does make sense. I just don't think it's a good fit.
I think, again, when you're talking about some of the analysts and the talking heads that are doing it, they're trying to look at the most intriguing spots, teams that could possibly use one that looks really sexy too as well. But
I would say this. And what about Cleveland?
Yeah,
what about Cleveland?
They're up there, you know, again.
Because Cleveland.
Now they've got a different quarterback here, and you knew the problem was probably between him and Baker Mayfield, which they've moved on but still have.
Yeah, I mean, it's Baker Mayfield. Let's be
funny
honest.
Thing too.
He's going to be traded.
Right. Well, and when you bring up June 1st, a lot of this stuff has to happen before June 1st. That is like the cutoff time for a lot of these different trades drops, because for some of these contracts that are out there, the June 1st, if they are on the roster by that time, some of these players do get bonuses. So you'll see some of these free agents hit the free agent wire right there. You'll see some of these guys, brand new ones, into this pool, and they get that much bigger here and more intriguing for these other teams.
Yeah, and they still got a couple of weeks to work out those details. So I fully expect Baker to be gone. He's going to be dealt somewhere. So, you know, somebody's going to. There's already been there's been a couple of teams that have been interested for a long time now, and they need quarterback. I don't know who's going to be more interested. Who's going to pull the trigger? You know,
so you bring up Cleveland as maybe the potential spot for Odell Beckham Jr. here too, because
you look at that roster right now, and they're a team. They're a competitive team. I mean, call them what you want, but they are in that division. They play everybody tough. They play other opponents tough, and it seems like they're just kind of like they're close, but they just need a couple things to work out for them, right? You look at Deshaun Watson now. Now they bring in a proven quarterback in his prime. I mean, young. 25 or 24, something crazy. Super young quarterback. He's proven. And then they miss out on Landry. Now he's still in free agency. There's no doubt that there's a possibility where Landry ends up re-signing with Cleveland because now that Watson is there. But also, if you manage to bring back Odell Beckham and you bring him into Cleveland and maybe pair him back up with Landry with Deshaun Watson, I bet you I know someone will be happy. That quarterback is going to be thrilled because now he's going to have two weapons that he can throw to, and that offense is going to take off. You think about that. Their offensive line solid. They got those two premier, or they have Nick Chubb, who's a premier back, and then you add these weapons with Watson. Ooh, I'll tell you what, this division could be real interesting.
Yeah, absolutely, and the additions that they made already too in the offseason to bring. But the funny thing was too, they just had these players recently, and to bring them back on different deals, right? I think would be kind of hilarious.
It would be funny,
but
right?
Again, guys like Deshaun Watson, that will happen a lot of times with free agents. You'll see free agents want to go there just because now you have something like that. They could see there's a future possibly here for them to move on. And again, these quarterbacks too, being able to go to some of these spots where there is a complete running game as well. I mean, we know that Deshaun Watson can do things on his own. I mean, he has been in the MVP type of conversation already before with his play. He can make plays too, but with his legs and stuff. He doesn't need to have a strong running game to get it going for him on offense. But to have that complement along with you there to add to it, I mean, that is that much better too. And you're not putting it on his shoulders, much like he had to do when he was with the Texans here. So that could be intriguing for them there too as well. But we shall see. There's a lot of time to move on here with Odell Beckham Jr. But we're getting back to Bradbury now. We talked about this corner being, in 2020, he was a Pro Bowler. Again, only missed a couple games in the last two seasons here for the Giants. Still playing at a decent level here, even though he was on a poor team. Where do you see that he could possibly go here, or best landing spots for him? Because there are even some of these teams here that still have that spot that isn't guaranteed, or a real tight spot here at the corner position. Some of them have tried to get some younger guys they want to try and groom into spots, but others had signed other free agents to kind of fill those voids. But still, I mean, how great is that going to be for them?
And when it comes to the cornerback position, there's a lot of teams that are going to be interested. It's gonna matter where Bradbury wants to go, though. You know what I mean? So you look at like the Raiders. I know he's been tied to the Raiders for like ever.
Right.
The Raiders had negotiations with the Giants on possibly consummating a trade, but never got to the final stages. I also look at the Chargers. The Chargers. Listen, Chris Harris is a free agent right now. What's to say that the Chargers, who have a decent amount of money, that they can go after a guy like Bradbury, and then they also spent a boatload of money on the top cornerback free agent to bring him over from the Patriots now as a Charger. Imagine teaming him up with Bradbury. I mean, that would be
scary.
That'd be a really scary duo right there, but it's possible. You look at the Chiefs. The Chiefs have always needed cornerback help, and they're a team to look out. So I would say basically everybody in the AFC West is going to look at Bradbury. After that, then there's going to be – obviously there's going to be other teams. 49ers comes to mind. They've always been looking for another shutdown corner. They keep bringing in veteran after veteran, and haven't solidified that spot just yet. I know they have some great young talent, but why not bring in a proven veteran right away that can also help develop those younger corners? You look at the Saints. I know the Saints – they've had older vets come in. Janoris Jenkins left the Giants, went to New Orleans. He was there for a year or two, and now that's vacant again. They did re-sign P.J. Williams, but that's another team that I think could maybe give a phone call to Bradbury, be like, hey, would you be interested in New Orleans? So I kind of write off teams that are like still kind of rebuilding, like the Jaguars, obviously the Texans, Seattle even. Like, I know they still need to rebuild that defense, but they're just not going to – I don't think they're going to be competitive this season. I think they might have some surprises. You know what I mean? We've all seen those fluky type games, and they might have a couple of them. But after that, maybe Tennessee. I know Tennessee loves their defensive players. They could bring him in to help out with that secondary. So when you go up and down the list of the NFL, there's going to be a bunch of teams. Even what's to say New England? New England could come calling. They don't
Jets
have
a whole lot of money though. That's the thing with New England though too.
I'm telling you right now, all of these veterans that are available now, there's a reason. Because they're a little older, and teams are not going to be paying buku dollars to them. So I think that teams can, construct a contract to fit each other's needs. You know what I mean? Whether it be Bradbury or Odell, they can make an incentive laden where they don't have to pay him a boatload of base salary to go against the cap. They can have that number kind of reduced and say, okay, well, if you're on the roster, week 1, you're going to get a boost of money. You know what I mean? There's all kinds of incentives that you could put in the contract to further boost that deal as the season progresses. So look for that to happen with a lot of these free agents that are available. Anybody that needs help at corner, that's basically it. But it's got to be the right fit for Bradbury now, because now he gets to choose, just like all these other free agents. They get to choose where they want to go. And they're going to look for a team that is at least going to be competitive in their eyes. If they're not competitive, they're just going to kind of scoff at the deal and move on to the next team.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of different free agents out there. We'll get to
probably
options. The edge rushers in just a bit here, but I wanted to tell you about, you're talking about competitiveness and, taking care of you and stuff like that. I'm going to tell you guys about my friends at Mohawk Honda right now, because in a very competitive business and selling cars, stuff like that, there's nobody more reliable than our friends at Mohawk Honda there on Freeman's Bridge Road. This spring, it's the perfect time too. You'll get top dollar for your trade-in. They got the Kelly Blue Book instant cash offer again, still going. You can even fill that stuff out online before you even go there. Get the value of your car, and you can go there ahead, already knowing what numbers you're looking at here. And then shop also online for whatever car's available. I was looking at some stuff there too, and looking at the the pilot trail runner and stuff. It's beautiful, man. Brand new 2022 right there. We got all blacked out everything. Oh man, black leather seats, everything, all the bells and whistles. But the same day check in your hand right there. Kelly Blue Book instant cash offer. You can't go wrong there. The new inventory continues to roll in Mohawk Honda. Don't forget, you can follow them on Facebook too, as well on Twitter and all their social media platforms too, to stay up to date with all the newest vehicles rolling in. They have a bunch of short videos too about all different things, even nifty tips to try how to change tires and oil and stuff like that too, to help you all out, because what they do is they go out of their way to please you, Joe, and all the Mohawk Honda sales and leasing consultants will work with you to find the best vehicle that fits your budget and lifestyle. Visit Mohawk Honda on Freeman Bridge Road in Scotia Glenville today. Mohawk Honda, where they go out of their way to please you. All right, Joe. Now, what one of these edge rushers can possibly please a team here? You know, we saw Melvin Ingram go with the Steelers in 2021, but then all of a sudden get released, and then he goes and finds a spot here with the Chiefs and seem to do okay with them with that type of defense where they go. But they have a lot of other pass rushing stars there on that team. If you had Jones and Frank Clark, stuff like that.
Can we talk about that right quick?
Yeah.
Can we talk about the fact that Chris Jones was playing D-end?
Right.
It was the absolute abysmal decision. It was terrible.
Yeah.
He's a D tackle. He's a Pro Bowl D tackle. You don't move a Pro Bowl D tackle to put him at end because you're short at that position.
Yeah, and it kind of seemed almost like they were kind of like he had an idea. It's like, we'll sprinkle him in these different positions when I want, but not really like gauging the game. Like when he was successful in his normal location, he would do well, and then they would slide him out and move him over again. It's like, if that's working with you, why don't you just watch what's going on in the game and do what's best?
Every single time teams saw him line up at end, they were like, oh, we're running that way because he's too slow to get to the corner. It was just laughable. But anyway, we'll talk about Melvin Ingram. He actually was on the Chiefs. Came on, what was it? It was like kind of like in the beginning of the season, like week 2-ish or something like that, when they started to realize they need some extra help. He comes in
absolutely
on a rotational basis and actually played pretty darn well. You know, he is 33 years old now, and I still feel could help a team in a rotation. I would not be surprised if the Chiefs re-sign, Melvin Ingram, because they saw what he was able to do for them, and help out in that rotation and become aggressive. And he really attacked a lot of offensive lines and got the best of them, even at his age. And I know some people were kind of, worried about him coming back from injury. Is he going to be the same guy? Is he going to have the same get off at the snap? And the Chiefs they rolled the dice and they won, So Melvin Ingram is still one of those guys that are out there that he can help any team that needs an edge rusher. Even at the age of 33, the guy can still get it done, still make an impact. And another edge rusher that's out there, and I know he's one of the favorites to a lot of people, is Jadeveon Clowney. And they're like, why is Jadeveon not signed yet? I don't understand. Well, let us tell you this. He doesn't sack the quarterback very often. Very often, it's very rarely. I will give Clowney credit in terms of him creating pressure, and he's actually a really good defensive man against the run. Plays the run remarkably, but he just doesn't get those critical sacks that you need. The pressure is great, don't get me wrong, and that's almost as good as sacks. But when you get those sacks, now you're changing field of position. Now you're pushing that offense back farther. You're making it harder for them to move forward, and that's what a lot of teams are looking at with these edge rushers. They want production. They want those sacks. They want the fumbles to be created, and Clowney is not that guy. I think he could definitely help out anybody. He is 29 years old, so he's a little younger than Melvin Ingram, obviously. But after 7 seasons, Clowney's year in Cleveland went another direction.
Yeah.
He had 9 sacks with Cleveland, and I think that was his most productive year, since Houston. When he had J.J. Watt on the other side to kind of take off some of the heat. He had Myles Garrett in Cleveland. So I feel like that's the formula for Clowney. He has to go somewhere where they already have a proven defensive end and then they bring in Clowney, and he can kind of thrive a little bit more that way. But the other bad part of Clowney is that he's also been often injured. And there's we've heard it more times than not about him and his work ethic, and people aren't really sure how hard he works and everything. But I think that now at this stage of his career, I think those questions are squashed a little bit now. I think he does work hard. He does, wherever he goes, it seems like he does work hard, puts in the work, and it shows up on the football field, especially with Cleveland. So you got to wonder what you're getting with Clowney. He's kind of like a little like a seesaw player. He's up and down. Now, are you getting the guy that just recently blew it up for Cleveland, and had 9 sacks? Or are you getting a guy like most of his career where he just never showed up on the stat sheet in terms of sacks, in terms of creating fumbles? So if you're getting that Cleveland guy, then he should be signed right away and brought right onto the team. I think another thing, too, is like since the Chargers were making all those big splashes with those huge signings, Chargers, imagine pairing him up with Joey Bosa.
That's the thing, and that's what I think where he excels the most. Like you said, having that other stud on the other side, and him being there, that's why I think it ended up working out for him. Much like what you're talking about when Melvin Ingram was able to join along with the Chiefs. Being the most productive, because again, like you said, he hasn't been this productive since his last 2 seasons with the Houston Texans, where he brought in 9.5 sacks and then 9 sacks, and that's when he hit free agency. And even then, still, the market wasn't really looking into him that much. They weren't really that blown away to where he eventually lands with the Seattle Seahawks. And then didn't really produce. That's what I mean. And then, like you said, you bring in on the injuries, and to where you start to even have a full healthy season. That's the thing you look back at, too, those last 2 seasons with the Texans. He started and just about played every single game that was there, stayed healthy, was able to do that. And then maybe that even helps by having that other personnel around him too, to also get pressure, helps keep him healthy at the same time as well. So what teams that do have something like that? You said the Chargers, that's a great example there too. Maybe even if you want to talk about Nick Bosa in the 49ers defense, that might help out too there on that type of situation, because they do like defense there. But the problem is that I think that you see with a lot of these certain edge rushers too that don't get a whole lot of sacks, mainly pressures, but able to muster up some if you have the personnel. A lot of these younger guys that they got in the draft can do that similar type of situation. So why do I go and get like a veteran like this to do that type of job when I've got some of these other younger guys that might eventually turn into something a little better, have more potential, a higher ceiling maybe. But that's when you kind of look at injuries through camps, things like that as well, to where these guys might even get picked up here. So it might even be a while before these guys, I think, find teams.
Well, the thing is, too, is when you talk about rookies, they're not proven. That's the bottom line. So, yeah, you might be in love with the guy that you've taken in the draft, but it don't mean he's going to do anything. He's got to prove it on the football field, and the NFL is a whole other level. So a lot of these guys that got taken, a lot of these guys that teams were falling over each other to go get, they might not pan out as high as you take them or as low as you've taken them. So that's why you go for these veterans, because they're insurance. That's really what it is. You bring in a guy like that can also help teach that rookie how to be a pro, how to handle himself, how to eat, how to diet, how to work out. And that's going to help further progress him and maybe make that rookie even better sooner. Maybe that year in his rookie year. Or maybe it's going to take until the second year. But that's why you add these vets, because they are going to help develop these young guys. Even if they're already on the team, they can make them better. And in turn, that makes the team better. And they're still going to help that roster. They're going to help that football team win games every single week. So that's why a lot of these veterans, you might look at them and be like, he's over 30. Or, man, he's on the tail end of 20. He's 29. I don't know if we really should bring in an older guy like that. But there's more value to those veterans than what they're capable of doing on the football field, because they can also help make your team better as well.
Yeah, so I mean, I think if you look at these types of guys, the edge rushers here, again, it could be anywhere. They're probably going to just go wherever they can. I don't think they're trying to look for a contender or stuff like that, like some of these other flashier skill player type of personalities that are out there. One of the things that I think that's intriguing with some of the free agents that's out there is what's going on with Rob Gronkowski. You know what I mean? A guy who was retired for a short while, working with CBD oils and things like that, trying to get into broadcasting, dropped a bunch of weight, has a phone conversation with Tom Brady. All of a sudden, he's suiting up, ready to come back. They go win a championship, and then last year didn't pan out the way they wanted to here. He's sitting there. I think the organization has kind of left it out there like we'd love to have him back and things like that, but he physically or even absolutely hasn't been out there in the media really stating anything in what he's going to be doing, whether he is going to just fully retire again and just be done or if he's going to come back or not. It's been fairly quiet, so he's kind of one of those guys that's just hovering around there, still productive at his age even too, playing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I still don't think, at his, he's not where his ceiling was before, where he was his best, but still can block, still get open
Great
and
blocker.
be physical, and get on some of these mismatches here and catch the ball. So
yeah, we talk about these veterans. I mean, this is a guy that's a plug-and-play type of player. Yeah, he's had his injury bugs and had back issues and everything. And this is why you're not hearing anything from Rob Gronkowski right now, is because he is taking his time. He's taking his time thinking about everything. Do I want to play another season? Do I not want to play another season? Because you're right. Last year was a disappointment. They didn't make it back to the big dance. They didn't make it to the Super Bowl. So now he's just thinking about himself right now. He's thinking about his family. He's thinking about whether he wants to put his body, through the whole season again. Because if you remember, like now the season isn't just, 17 weeks. It's 18 weeks. And I know that extra week doesn't sound too crazy, but for football players it is, because that just means an extra week of preparing for a game, an extra week for your body to physically be worn down. As you get down to the end of the season, if you're about to make the playoffs and you're one of those teams, your body has been beat up, battered and bruised all season long, and you're not giving – there's just no way to get enough rest in between those weeks. So right now, Gronkowski is definitely thinking about whether he even wants – don't get me wrong, I think he loves football to death. It's not that. It's not love for the game. It's more about, does he want to put his body through that whole season all over again? And if he does, it's going to be interesting to see where he ends up, because everybody and their brother is saying he's going right back to Tampa. He's going back to Tom Brady. And that is a very likely scenario. But we've also heard Gronkowski say before he was going to start thinking about retirement again, he said, I don't have to play with Tom again. So he kind of left the door open about maybe it's going to be about it being a better fit for him personally rather than just teaming up with old buddy Tom again. Because there are teams that utilize those double tight ends sets that New England uses and other teams that could use a Rob Gronkowski right now to help them.
Yeah. And if you want to bring up one of the teams that were even mentioned by Rob Gronkowski, it was the now returning AFC champions, the Cincinnati Bengals. He said he'd love to play with Joe Burrow and be able to play with the Bengals too as well. And that's a young, up-and-coming quarterback team who just lost CJ Uzoma, who's now a New York Jet. So they have that little bit of a spot here for a tight end to move in here too. And what better than a veteran like Rob Gronkowski here who can still play, can still protect Joe Burrow too, who despite how far they made it in the playoffs and all the way to the Super Bowl, he got demolished. Even in one of those playoff games, he was sacked, I forget how many times, but it was like a league record, and still getting back up, driving forward and pulling out the victory here. But still, you can't survive being hit that many times. Look at what's happened with Russell Wilson, where he's able to get out of Seattle finally. He just got tired of getting hit all the time and not really mustering up to any wins and them not getting him any help. So now the Bengals, trying to help them out this year in the draft with that situation here, but then also adding, Rob Gronkowski to the mix, I think for this team, I think would be even showing them they're looking to make another championship run here. They have what it takes to go, and Rob Gronkowski would be a nice fit here for the Cincinnati Bengals.
You know, the thing with Rob Gronkowski is I feel, yes, he made that statement or whatever, and it would be a good fit. But how are you going to utilize Gronkowski? Because in Cincinnati, you utilize blocking more than he is going out for passes. And we've all seen all the weapons that they have, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd. So how are you going to divvy up, how much, is he going to be that effective? C.J. Uzomah, he was kind of limited more, last season than I thought he would be. I thought he would be a bigger part of that offense, but given the ascension of Jamar Chase and how much better he was, that's where you kind of saw a limited role for CJ. And now it's like, now if you brought in a Rob Gronkowski, not saying it's a bad fit, but will Gronkowski be happy in this offense?
Well, it might even help out better because, too, what do you see a lot of times with teams? It's a copycat league. They see how successful Jamar Chase was. What we got to do, we got to try and double team him or get it messy there. And then all of a sudden, now you've got Gronkowski, the tight end kind of spot, sort of how if you've got Tyreek Hill back there, Travis Kelce was there to clean up.
But that would be effective if Jamar Chase was the only receiver to worry about.
Well, I hear you too, but but he still did get a lot. I mean, yes, Higgins did get some here and there, but they really went a lot
because they have those
Jamar
three
Chase.
Key receivers. It's kind of okay, you can shut down Chase, but we're just going to throw it to T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. So. I see that being more favorable to if they only had Jamar Chase or maybe one other receiver, then you get a Gronkowski to be more involved. But I'm just saying because Gronkowski wants to be involved, especially down in that red zone, he's going to want the ball, to help the team out. I think it's going to be more about teams that have those double tight end sets. It's going to be the Tennessee Titans that can use it with Mike Vrabel and his offense. We know Ryan Tannehill is going to need all the help he can get. Now that A.J. Brown's gone, they drafted Treylon Burks, but that's not the answer because you don't know how he's going to turn out. So maybe bring in a Rob Gronkowski to help out with that kind of gap there in terms of that offensive firepower. But then you look at the Raiders too. Josh McDaniels coached Rob Gronkowski. The connection is there. The offense is a double tight end set. So you just say for craziness here, Waller and Rob Gronkowski. What an amazing pair, because now you don't have to rely on just Gronkowski because you don't know what's going to happen with that offense. You'll have Adams, Renfrow, Waller, and Gronk. Gronk is a phenomenal blocker. He also, when you least expect it, he's wide open by himself. And so I'm just saying that there, as far as for Gronkowski and for him, yes, I get the connection with Cincinnati because it's like tagging along. I want to go to a competitor, and I'm going to tag along with Cincinnati, and maybe they were there once. If I was just to help them out, maybe we get over the hump. And that's definitely a possibility. But the interesting thing is also with Gronk is the most likely scenario is that he does return with Tom.
Yeah.
But I think it would be way more fun for NFL fans to see him play elsewhere.
Yeah.
And see how much of a difference he can make for another team, like the Bengals, like the Titans, like the Raiders, someone like that, just to see a little bit different uniform.
Yeah, to see how even he performs, whether it's to due to the quarterback or not. We've seen guys like this, like for some reason I'm thinking like Jason Witten, but like you see guys that perform well with their team, but then go to another team, and it's like not so much. But then they're able to fall back with their team, their guy that they had, and there they are. They're back again. So, I mean, it'd be interesting to see someone like that. But it's up to him, though, too. I mean, that's the best part about this whole thing, especially in his situation. He's like, I get to go where I want if I want to. And those are all great situations.
And
who wouldn't want to play with, Devontae Adams and Derek Carr and
Josh
Jacobs right at the running game? In that even division, that makes it amazing right there. Or even if he wanted to go and help out, with the Chargers and Justin Herbert there, do something like that. Like you said, we said before the Bengals. I mean, so he has a lot of options, and it's traditionally up to him and what he wants to do. But it's exciting to think about.
Yeah, I just think that The funny part is we want something to happen now. Like this week would be nice.
Oh, yeah.
With all these guys to sign somewhere. But Gronkowski and the rest of these free agents, they have a ton of time before training camp hits.
Mm-hmm.
Like, training camp's August. So all these teams that are still trying to figure things out, maybe with the cap, maybe they're waiting till June passes, and then some of these teams are going to get a boost in cap space, and then they're going to attack the free agency market once again. Or maybe teams are just waiting to see what these players, make their minds up. Maybe there's offers already on the table for these players, and they're just trying to sit back, think about which one of the 4 teams or whatever they want to really go to. They're really starting to think about it. So Gronkowski, come on, Gronk, make us happy. Choose something here. Come back to play.
Absolutely. Now we're looking at some of these free agents that are out here, and then some of the best available. The NFL.com has ranked them all and stuff like that. A lot of these guys found homes. What's your next free agent that's pretty much on this list that is probably most intriguing that you could see finding a spot probably sooner than later?
I want to touch on Clowney real quick because I was just scrolling down, and I noticed the Lions could use him.
Oh, yeah.
Because Trey Flowers left Detroit. He's a free agent too.
Yeah, he is too.
But imagine if they could bring in a guy like Clowney, who I think would fit that defense a little bit better. They have a lot more athletic type of DNs now in that defensive scheme. So maybe he's a fit there as well. But another player that I really love too is, and just say Trey Flowers because I still think he's a really good player even at the age of 29, who's very productive, but he was making too much money. Let's just say all that in Detroit. And that's why he ended up becoming a free agent. So he's still only 29 years old. He's on the tail end of his prime, but still can really help a team that is looking for edge rushers. Another guy that comes to mind that I absolutely love is D-tackle Akeem Hicks from Chicago. I mean, how could you not love this guy? I know everyone's pointing at his age at 32 years old, but, man, this guy can still play. He's an every down D-tackle. He plugs the run. You're not going to run up the middle on him. And then he also, which isn't normal for D-tackles, but he's also great at pass rushing. So a guy that can do both for you. And
absolutely.
I think
he was great to be there
age,
as a cleanup there with Khalil Mack, too, because you saw them work well together as a tandem. And it wasn't only until last year that he got really injured. Before that, he's been fairly healthy,
solid,
doing great, and again, putting up those numbers and being as one of those names that you always hear in the backfield, whether it's stop the run, whether it's creating pressure, or even just getting those sacks too as well, and forcing turnovers too on top of it. So, but again, as he's getting older here too, a lot of people are just going to be thinking on the tail end, I'm just looking for a solid guy here, not looking to spend a whole lot and even expect a whole lot, and you could really get really good value out of this guy right here.
Exactly. And, it's funny because we go look at that Fletcher Cox situation with the Eagles and how they were even contemplating trading him last year. Didn't do it. Nothing came about it, but then they end up giving him an extension to keep him there. And this is the same kind of player, though. I think not as good now at this stage as Fletcher Cox is, even though he's still in that age bracket. But Akeem Hicks is still a dominating player. Even at that age, he could help out anybody that's in need of a D-tackle. Another player that I would really like to see signed somewhere is outside linebacker Anthony Barr. I'm actually kind of confused why he's still available. Anthony Barr, as big as this guy is, he can cover, he can tackle really well, he can play the run extremely well. So with a guy with his stature and his rare size, and him to be able to do everything well as a linebacker, why the hell is this guy not signed yet? I know there's plenty of teams out there that could still use linebacker help, and this guy's just sitting there. I mean, maybe you look at him, he's 30 years old, but at this point, there's several free agents at this point where I'd be like, call them up right now. See if you get a deal done. Even if it's incentive-laden, just get something in writing. Get it done. Get them in there to help out your football team.
All right, now let's look at some of the offensive linemen here. We've got Dwayne Brown out there still, and Eric Fisher. Eric Fisher is probably out there too just because he had that torn ACL here that or the Achilles. That created his probably worst season since his rookie year. But still, when he was healthy, can play really well. So this could be a good value pick by somebody. But how worried are you on just getting somebody like this?
I think Eric Fisher is so overrated, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I don't think he was good even with the Chiefs. He got exposed plenty of times against really good edge rushers. So even that was when he was healthy. And now you look back, he had that terrible, terrible ACL injury. Came back, played with the Colts in limited fashion, looked out of sorts a lot of times on the football field. So I don't know how healthy he is, but even if he's 100%, he looks like he's, mentally thinking about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So he's still not comfortable with that injury just yet. And a player that is an older veteran right now who was injured late in his career, that's a guy that I just wouldn't even touch. He wasn't elite when he was healthy, and he's not going to be now, and he's still too concerned with that injury. I just wouldn't even touch him. I would just leave him out there.
And what about Dwayne Brown again? He has a lot of time here spent with the Seahawks. Do they just, again, after sitting out there again, he's comfortable with what they're doing, they bring him back maybe for a little bit, or again, he's just out there. If anybody ever just needs a spot floating around.
I mean, honestly, Dwayne Brown, you would think that the Seattle Seahawks would try to entertain the idea of maybe bringing him back as a right tackle. If you would be, open to doing that. I think that would make sense. But they did take a tackle in the draft. I think that's why obviously he's now a free agent. They had a plan going in. They executed it, and Dwayne Brown's out there. But you can never have too many left tackles, right? So I think Dwayne Brown's in an interesting situation right now where he is 37 years old. That is very high for an offensive lineman. I still think he could help out a team, but I think I think of him more now as a backup role. I think if there's a team that is looking to bolster up their depth chart, you go ahead and you bring in Dwayne Brown, and he will be your solid backup in case your other left tackle gets hurt. That's what I would do. I would try to entertain that idea. But I think that's where they're at right now. I think an offensive lineman at 37 years old, or even a D lineman at 35 years old, you think about Ndamukong Suh. He's another free agent out there, mid-30s, a guy that is solid against the run, but that's about it. That's all you're getting with Suh. So, especially this late in his career, again, I would bring in Suh if you want to bolster your depth chart, and that's it. And all these guys are going to get paid league veteran minimum. That's it. Because their age, because they are at the end of their run, and you could bolster your depth, and if they're okay with that, cool. If not, then most likely they're just going to be sitting out there waiting for an opportunity, bearing a major injury to someone on a team.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what those guys have been. If you look at like Suh, Sheldon Richardson, they've been living on 1-2 year deals for the last, I don't know how many years, you know what I mean? And
like
kind
4 or
of jumping
5,
around to try and find those spots. Less, I guess, Sheldon Richardson just basically trying to find a home since he was with the Jets and then moving on to others.
Well, with Suh, real quick, with Suh, it's more about money.
Money.
That was the problem.
Yeah.
He wanted
or trying
dollars.
to get where he got. I mean, he did eventually get a ring with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here, and that's where he probably played his best in playoffs situation was with them. But you saw it with the Rams. You saw it with a couple others. After being with, again, drafted into a terrible team in the Detroit Lions, that's what he ended up moving on. He's like, I'm not wasting my career here. I want to try and move on, try and get even
He
that
kept looking
and
for the
money as well.
next biggest contract. And that's why
those days have got to be over.
And that's why it became those 1-year deals. The Rams signed him to a one-year deal, but it was a lot of money for a D tackle. Then he goes somewhere else, gets a lot of money to be D tackle. So it wore out thin. Now he's 35, and you're not getting that same explosion that you were in his prime. So given his age and the type of player that he is at this stage of his career, he's just a depth piece now. Now he is just a backup. I don't see him starting anywhere, obviously, unless something happens, because we see this happen a lot. Even in training camp, a guy might go down with a season-ending injury, and you're like, shit. Call Ndamukong because we're going to need help. You know what I mean? So that is going to happen, and maybe that's where a lot of these older free agents are waiting to see if that does occur, and then they can kind of fill in that role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, now looking at the last remaining that are available here, anybody else that kind of sparks your interest? I know when we were looking at this pre-show, Kevin King was out there, and you kind of lit up like, wow, he's out there.
Yeah.
Maybe because he's young. He's 27 years old out there. Last year, again, did not do so well, but he also got hurt, too, as well.
He had a season-ending injury. Yeah.
So, I mean, again, but even look at previous years, just kind of hit and miss here and there for some of his stuff, but still a young corner that's able to contribute to some teams. Seemed like he had really found his niche that little bit there with that Green Bay defense. But he's out there. And then you've got other veterans, again, like you said, Larry Ogunjobi's out there, Dante Hightower too, which seems, for me, again, he's kind of outlived his thing. He's out there floating around. I think best scenario for him that he goes back to the Patriots again, because I don't know if he'd be going anywhere else, really, or how much people really want him.
If that was the case, he'd be signed by now.
Yeah.
Because
but
you look at that movement that New England had. Now they got all young linebackers. Yeah. There's no need for Dante Hightower anymore. The torch has been passed. So Hightower is going to sit out there until he finds a scheme fit, and that's going to be hard because when you're a player that can only pretty much play in one scheme, that limits you a lot in terms of what team you can sign with, and whether those teams are interested, that's a whole other deal. But when you brought up Kevin King. I like Kevin King a lot. Like when he was asked to play man coverage in Green Bay, he did a really good job. This is a guy that's actually a really long corner, tall corner with a lot of speed. And if he finds that fit that he once had in Green Bay, he can also help another team out. And doesn't necessarily need to be a starter. Some team could get a bargain right now and just pick up Kevin King right now, a 27-year-old type of player that can really help your team maybe for next 3 seasons. Yeah,
if you can get the guy that you had back in 2019 where he did play most of his games, he started in 14 out of the 15 games he played. He ended up getting 5 interceptions that year.
Yeah.
And also 66 combo tackles.
And that's
his best season.
And that's when he was asked to do a lot of man. And that's what he thrives on. So if you're going to be like a zone team, I don't think that's the right fit for him. He's going to have to be asked, kind of like a Patrick Graham scheme, where you're starting to see that throughout the NFL, where that 4-2-5 configuration comes into play, where there's a lot of corners being asked to play more man now. And he could fit that role for somebody. As far as Dante Hightower, though, goes, yeah, I think that the Patriot thing is done. That's why he's still out there. He's hoping that one of these Patriot disciples, Mike Vrabel or Josh McDaniels or somebody comes calling in to try to bring him back in to help out with their defense. Other than that, Larry Ogunjobi. Defensive lineman who predominantly plays D tackle, but he can play end, kind of versatile type of D lineman, and had a pretty good year with Cincinnati last season. So I wonder why he's still sitting out there at the age of 28. And he's had some big splash plays last year, like not extremely consistent, but he's made a difference on that defensive line. So I wonder if this is another candidate that ends up later on re-signs with his old team, like a Cincinnati, and try to make another run with them. So, but other than that, I mean, you got another offensive lineman by the name of Riley Reef, who's up there in age, 33. But, he missed a big chunk of the season due to a mid-ankle injury that he sustained. And but now he's a free agent because the Bengals already have their tackles now. He's not going back to Cincinnati. So that's where you kind of see that end up. And that's about it for these like top-notch free agents in my eyes. I think a lot of these guys, especially linemen, for offensive linemen, it's a little harder to get a job when you start to get up there in age. But I think they really need to kind of have like they got to look in the mirror a little bit and say, okay, I'm 30 plus years old, 30 whatever, right? 32, 33, 35, whatever. At this stage of my career, I had a good career. But now maybe I go to a team and help a team out that needs help. You know what I mean? Just willing to take the lower deal and go play ball and help another team out. Or I take whatever I can get and I'm in a backup role. It's not so bad.
Absolutely. We got Mike Tackett in the house with us tonight.
What's going on, Mike?
All right. He says, will Melvin Ingram be traded before training camp?
He's a free agent.
He's a free agent.
So I don't think he will be traded.
Do you think he would be picked up before training camp? Maybe that's what he thinks. Signed, maybe.
Signed, probably.
Before training camp.
Again, 33-year-old edge rusher can play for you, but I think it's going to come down to, whether teams are going to look to fill holes, right? At this point, they went through the first stage of free agency and the draft, and now you're in this weird kind of third stage of the offseason where we're still waiting for, the rookies to kind of get into training camp. We're still waiting for training camp and everybody getting together and practicing and working hard. Injuries are going to occur. And when the injuries do happen, that's when you can kind of see a lot of these older free agents kind of get signed and start playing. Another guy, too, is Chris Harris Jr. He's an older corner that just left the Chargers, still out there for any team that is looking for depth or even to consider him as a starter. So there are a lot, and I mean a lot, of veteran free agents to be signed, and they're still capable of playing well. KJ Wright is not one of them. I'll tell you that right now. I got firsthand knowledge of that, watching him play for the Raiders last year. Too slow. He's done. Go back to Seattle.
Right, and it makes me think, like, when you when we were talking about Adante Hightower, were you surprised that Kyle Van Noy even found another spot, and it happened to be the Chargers?
No, not at all.
Because what's funny is what happened with Kyle Van Noy. He went to Miami, kind of didn't. I don't know if it didn't fit the scheme right or anything like that. Didn't play a whole lot with them. Didn't really do anything. He only did like 8 games in his last season that he was there, but really didn't do anything. But if you look at it here too, last year ends up getting an interception. He gets, for a touchdown. Plus he gets the forced fumbles, and it's 5 sacks still. And that's what, when you look at it, maybe it's just a consistency, because consistently through his years, averaging 5+ sacks every year.
Yeah, no, it's not a question of production. The guy had the best coverage for a linebacker rating in the whole league. Best coverage linebacker in the whole league, even at his age, Kyle Van Noy. So I don't think I'm not surprised at all that he signed before Dante Hightower. He can do more. He's a more versatile type of linebacker. So, and he can, he tackles well. He can even rush the passer if you want him to. He covers extremely well. So, as far as Hightower goes, Hightower's different. He's more of that thicker type of middle, traditional type of linebacker, where he might be a little slower. He's not going to be phenomenal in coverage, but he will pound your running back. He'll stop him before he gets to the line of scrimmage. He'll tackle well in space and everything. But so you're getting kind of like a one-trick pony in a sense. So unless you have a scheme that fits that type of linebacker, he's not going to be, he's not going to sign anywhere. So given his age, and this is the other hurdle that these guys have to try to get over, right, is their mentality and their ego about do they still deserve to be a starter. You know what I mean? So when you get to this stage like a Hightower, where in your scheme specific, you can't be too picky where you're going to sign for how much. So like I said before, they got to look into the mirror and say, listen, this is where I'm at in my career, and if I want to continue playing, I might have to sacrifice money or might have to sacrifice playing as a starter to continue. And I think Dante Hightower is the one that fits perfectly into that scenario.
And Mike Tackett here to correct us, I guess. On May 2nd, the Chiefs placed an unrestricted free agent tender on Ingram worth $4.4 million. So Yeah, so then it would have made sense, I guess, for when we were talking about the Chiefs, bring him back, and to be part of that team.
He'll end up being
successful,
cut.
But
I don't think he's going to get traded at all.
That's the thing. Yeah, it's if he was out there and people, he goes back to a team that's familiar with him, where he's actually been productive for the first time in a long time.
He's a good player, still can play. Bottom line, but he's not a starter. So you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's definitely a guy that's going to come in your rotation type of deal, just like he did with the Chiefs. He played a more predominant role down the stretch with them, but I still like him. I still think he's a good player. I just don't think he's starter worthy right now, and I think he's more deadly as a rotational piece, guy that can stay fresh, come in and help out in and out of the lineup. So. I don't think he's going to get traded, honestly. I mean, given his age and everything, what are you going to get for him? A Snickers bar? I mean, there's not a whole lot of value there. So, 7th-round pick the most if he does get traded. I don't see it being any more. But that tender for $4.4 million is kind of hefty. You know what I mean? I don't know if the Chiefs kind of want to hold on to that.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they do. Maybe they're fine with it. But maybe another team doesn't want that. Maybe they would rather pay him like 2 or 3. So I don't think he'll be traded. I'll be surprised if he gets traded. I'll tell you that much. But yeah, I think he's either going to stay a Chief or maybe he even gets cut. As training camp goes, because the Chiefs now they got the Greek god and George Karlaftis, one of our picks.
Absolutely, yeah.
So he's going to kind of replace. Melvin Ingram now because that's going to take up that roster spot. So they're going to see him on the field more than Melvin.
Yeah, I heard you talk about good value and stuff. Why don't you tell everybody here about the good value you get when you go and shop with Johnstone Supply in Troy?
I wish I had a pricing list because
Yeah,
then I
I
could
know.
tell you
They
all
can
about
tell
the
you
value.
exactly.
But anyway, listen, it's never too early to start thinking about how to stay cool this summer. We're already cool, so we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
But call now for pre-summer pricing on John Goodman and Central Air Conditioners. If you're looking to go with Fujitsu mini splits, they got them too. Don't ask me what they are because I don't really know. But they got them. If
I
you are
searched
looking
for them when I was on their website the other
Did
day.
you?
Yeah, I did. I was looking for trying to do hot water heaters, stuff like that, and they do have tankless hot water heaters and things like that too. So I'm looking to invest into something like that, so I could be working with Johnstone Supply even closer now than we already
Jim,
are.
just make sure you let them know where you heard it from.
Yeah, absolutely. I talked to Tom. Tom knows me. We know each other. He's a Notre Dame fan, actually, too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, if you're a homeowner as well and you're mulling over your options, these guys got you covered. They will help you out. Give them a call. If you have any questions, they're there to answer them for you. They're there to help. Or just stop in. Just stop in, 6th Avenue in Troy, New York. They're there to help you guys out. Maybe you can check out the stuff right there on the floor, showroom floor. And just a reminder out there, guess what, everybody? They also have the lowest prices of Milwaukee tools guaranteed. That's right. That guaranteed. Mark it down. If you're looking for Milwaukee tools, this is the place to go. Stop in 6th Avenue in Troy, New York to learn more or call Johnstone Supply. I'm going to give you the number, 518-272-5922. Make sure you give them a call for any questions or anything. That's 518-272-5922. Johnstone Supply in Troy.
Yeah, there you go.
Let's go.
Way to go, Joe. We made it through it. All right, and I'm excited to talk to those guys some more because I'm looking to do something different with there's a lot of people in my family and in this house. I don't want to have cold water anymore when I'm trying to shower. My kids, they love to just stay in there and let it beat down on them and stuff like that and just burn it all up by the time I get in there.
Man.
So
it does
I need
feel good,
something.
though.
I need an upgrade, buddy. I need to upgrade. All right, so tomorrow they are releasing the schedule here for us for the NFL schedule. We've seen the teams that these guys are going to be playing.
Yes.
So officially tomorrow we will see the actual schedule and what times. We've already heard about some of the over in the international games, some of the Thursday night matchups, some of the Monday night matchups here. But we need to see what days of the week they actually are. So ahead of time, before we know the actual dates of some of these, we hand selected a few. I'm sure there's more too that we can think of. And Mike Tackett, when you're out there too, let us know too, because I know you're absolutely on top of this stuff as well. we just handpicked a few here. What are you guys most intrigued about seeing here this coming season? Let's start off with. I've got. How about the Bills and the Chiefs right away? Let's go right at it.
That's a really good one.
Bills and Chiefs. That game last season went down to overtime. The coin toss decided kind of the whole thing to where now it just changed the NFL rules of overtime. So now everybody was up in arms after the whole thing because there's so many people behind the Bills and the way they were playing even in that game. And it was such a good game that it just is erupted into a big outcry. We need to change this because this was not the way it should have ended. And so we get to see the matchup again. Boom, here it is in the regular season.
That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, so the stage will be set. Get to see these two teams square off. And then maybe see them again this coming playoffs as well. I really
hope that the NFL does the right thing and make that a primetime game.
Right.
I really hope
that you're hoping that they do.
Another game is Ravens versus Bengals. And but like, oh, yeah, they play each other twice a year, every year. So what's the difference? Well,
which one do you want?
The Bengals. Like Joe Burrow and the ascension of the Bengals. Listen, we talked about it all season about how Cincinnati could possibly be one of these kind of sleeper teams to start thinking about them now because we might see them in the postseason. And sure enough, they didn't just go to the postseason. They went beyond the postseason to the Super Bowl. So the Bengals, they're flying high. And listen, they got even more dangerous in the offseason. Not only through the draft, but also free agency. They solidified that offensive line that was such a sieve, that was such a problem, where Joe Burrow was starting to get knocked around or flushed out of the pocket. Now that won't be a concern anymore. They got that thing locked up and buttoned up there. So now Joe Burrow's going to have time in the pocket. He's going to be able to move around wherever he sees fit. And also kind of throw the football around a little bit with Jamar Chase and all them. So what's not to love about that? And then you got the Ravens, who they kind of fell off the rails last year. A lot of injuries started to pile up, especially on the defensive side. And Lamar Jackson struggling down the stretch at the end of the season, throwing tons of interceptions. It was very weird and kind of abnormal for that offense and how it was run. So look for them to get back on track. They got a healthy roster again, and let's see what both of these two teams can do against each other when they're all hitting on all cylinders.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, everybody's raving about how the Ravens did in the draft here, and getting Tyler Linderbaum here at the center position here to help out that offensive
Phenomenal
line.
Pick.
And that's what they were kind of like you said last year. They were kind of like a hit and miss. We were there at the end zone in Mechanicsville watching them play the Dolphins, and the Dolphins really took it to them.
Really
what I mean? Things like that. They lost games like that, but then some of the other ones where that were even tougher, they would fight hard and muster out a win against a good team. Some of the other ones just could not get it done. And like you said, Lamar Jackson, to where we already knew what he could do with his legs, but we saw kind of an ascension previous season, not last year, but he was starting to get better, I think, with the passing game. And then last year, it kind of looked like he took a step back. So we're hoping that he can move forward with that here, but the big news is that Marquise Brown isn't there anymore. So you're looking at Devin Duvernay still there, and now Rashad Bateman's got to be the guy. So they've kind of, in a sense, just because Brown wasn't there, and again, you want to say that maybe he wasn't his number one target, but he still had a 1,000-yard season here. Andrews is obviously his guy, but losing him is going to make a little bit of a difference in that passing game. So it's going to be a tough matchup between these guys.
I don't know about losing him is going to make a big difference because that team is they just run all the time. So in terms of passing the ball around, the Ravens don't normally do that. So I think that's the reason why he ended up getting dealt, was because they even know. They're like, listen, we're not going to throw this much anyway. So let's go and move on from Hollywood. And they have these other two young receivers that they want to kind of bring up with Devin Duvernay, like you mentioned, and Rashad Bateman, who they absolutely love. So because of that, I feel like it made that separation a little bit easier for the Ravens. So
here's a question: how fast do you think Mike Davis maybe gets cut from this team?
I don't think so. No. This is a team that's going to use a lot of running backs.
We've seen it before. Probably. That'd be interesting.
They did it before. I mean, they've loaded up on running backs plenty of times, and good thing they did, because one after another, injury. So this is a Baltimore team where they really kind of drive their running backs into the ground. And then after that one's hurt, okay, next. So I see that trend continuing into the season.
All right. Here, let's get to some other ones here. Bucks and Rams. Again, we talked about the Buffalo Bills and the Chiefs getting the face off again. Now we get to see, a redo of the NFC Championship game where we had the Bucks and the Rams go at it. Tom Brady comes back again. He has unfinished business. He's looking to try and get it done this season. Doesn't want it to go out, I think, the way it did. Like, I think he was having his conversations with his wife and his family. They were pretty much saying, it's time. And he's like, yeah, okay, I understand. I want to do things for you. Spent a few weeks, out of it. But then I think maybe some of that was still eating at him. The fact that he made it as close as he did, wasn't able to get the ring again. He doesn't have enough of them. But get the championship and be able to walk away. Have that last hurrah and go. I think he still has that little bit enough in the tank, like he said, wants to get back there. But we get to see a preview of it again in the regular season. Will they meet each other again in the postseason again? Then it's going to be even more intriguing. Just like those prize fighters, when they go this guy versus this guy, the one, then it's two, then it's number three. They keep going at it. But the Bucks trying to retool, get back. Rams, they didn't really lose anything there either, too. They've locked and loaded, get Allen Robinson there, too, also at the wide receiver position with Cooper Kupp. I mean, this team is dangerous. They've got their quarterback locked into for a few more years, too. This is going to be exciting. I can't wait for this one.
And that's the reason there why the Rams aren't going to go into free agency and grab a guy like Odell, because they went out and they grabbed Allen Robinson instead to replace him. So another interesting game, I think, is the Titans at Bills. That's the former number one seed against a Bills team that we thought should have gone farther than they did. So that, to me, is another really good, and that's a Monday night game. That's being rumored as being one of the Monday night games. I think, was it on ESPN? Yeah. So that's an intriguing game. There you have a Titans team that last season weren't really sure where that defense was heading. Were they going to get better? Were they going to stay kind of, porous? And wow, we were surprised on how much better that Titans defense got. That offense kind of started to really roll with Derrick Henry and company. And now you look at this Bills team, that a team that was so solid before got better again. And you got to wonder, how a lot of these games are going to unfold, because there's been a lot of changes throughout the NFL. Not just some of these teams that were in the postseason last year, but a lot of teams have dramatic changes to the point where this could change the whole landscape that we are already kind of assuming is going to happen, could be flipped upside down on its head before we know it.
Absolutely. Staying on the Bills real quick, too. I was looking at Bills-Packers again. Two of the bigger teams on either divisions. Packers, again, right now, they've got to still be the cream of the crop, along with the Rams, again, defending champions here in that NFC spot. And that NFC is a lot weaker than what the AFC is. So I think any of these upper echelon teams against a lot of other of these AFC teams are going to get crazy. But if you look at, on the other hand, some of these AFC matchups you're going to see during the regular season, there's going to be so many good ones because a lot of the elite quarterback talent that went to the AFC in this offseason. But Packers, Green Bay, and Aaron Rodgers here against Josh Allen here, the young buck. He's a young stud who's got everybody, the fans all about him too. Aaron Rodgers, the guy that the media hates, and a lot of other fans too on the other side. Not really talkative. Got the boyish charm of Josh Allen on the other side. Two explosive offenses. It's going to be pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and there's so many really good games, because then you could even stay – you can stay in the AFC.
I want that to be later when there's snow. That's gonna be be a snow game too as well. I mean, it's gonna stink maybe for some of the offenses, but Green Bay Packers, they play in the snow, and Josh Allen, he ain't afraid of it either.
You just gotta hope that it's not a windy game.
Yeah, you don't want the wind though,
because that's the worst.
The difference there.
That is the absolute worst.
Absolutely.
We've already seen that where it was just nothing but running. That's all it was, and the Patriots dominated in that game. But Chargers Chiefs is another really good one that I'm looking forward to, because as crowded as the competition is in the AFC, this is two of the teams, and they're both in the same division too, that is going to be interesting to watch because the Chiefs have been head of the class for so long in that division. And the Chargers seem to be getting better every single season. Now, you got to wonder if the head coach for the Chargers is going to kind of veer back a little bit from how aggressive of play calling he was doing last season, going for it on a fourth down almost every time, to now going and playing it smarter, which might lead to more wins. If the Chargers, who got better, will they be able to topple the Chiefs and finally kind of dethrone the Chiefs this year?
Yeah, and that's the sad thing with that season, I think, last year. If I'm a Chargers fan, I am so frustrated with my head coach right now. I'm frustrated watching him and things just because some of those games made the difference. If you didn't put it all on the line like you did during the regular season, you don't have that play-in game. You're not in that position. You're already there. And I don't think he's going to change his mind. He seems to me like he's one of those guys like, this is the way I do it, and that's just how I do it. I ain't going to change it. This is my way.
But
by
doing it,
does
it's cost
cost
him.
you. But I think at this point, he still looks at it as, analytics too, or
that's
whatever.
how
If
he
I
looks
do
at it.
this, it's in my favor that's going to happen. And again, us as fans, we're still watching it. It's like we saw it. 1 out of 4 tries, you made it finally. It's like that doesn't make sense to in the game. Play the game for what it is, not analytics. Analytics and numbers can be found within different scenarios.
Oh yeah.
Look at the game and how it's flowing, and look at the scenario that's right in front of you. That's what I don't get with some of these analytics.
But the key thing for his decision making, they happened in critical games, and it cost him a playoff run. It cost him, getting to the playoffs easily, rather than that Raider game that they had, and went right down to the wire.
It did.
And you got to wonder in that game if he didn't do what he did and go for it on fourth down in his own territory and give the ball back to the Raiders, that could have been a different outcome, and they're in the playoffs.
Gave him the short field. Yeah, absolutely. But you talked about that matchup. That's going to be crazy here with the Chiefs. That's going to be a Thursday night game. I think they had already said on Amazon they were trying to talk that up during the draft in a stupid position.
Can we just complain a little bit about Amazon right now?
Sure.
They're harnessing these Thursday night games now. So this season, from what it sounds like, the only way you can see Thursday night football games is now as if you watch Amazon Prime.
Which isn't as bad because a lot of people have Prime, though.
But
not
some
everybody
people
had
don't.
the NFL Network.
But some people don't have Amazon Prime.
Okay, well,
You know
then
what I
you're
mean?
in the same position than if you didn't have NFL.com.
Well, that's
or NFL channel.
I mean, that's
whatever it was.
that's a TV
NFL Network.
subscription. That's to me, it's like not everybody.
That's what I mean. But this is a
pays for the
streaming
Prime
subscription.
thing.
If you pay for Prime,
And here's the
you
other
still
problem.
get the viewing of the videos, you get the music, but then you also get the shipping. I mean, that's an all-around better thing for me than getting NFL Network.
I don't see it, because if the stream doesn't work, you're screwed anyway.
Well, that's what always sucks, is because a lot of times streams don't work, but even some of the even digital programming gets phased out and doesn't work properly either. But a lot of people, that's what they're turning to. A lot of people are getting rid of cable and things like that too, and just going straight streaming services too.
Yeah, I just think it's terrible.
What it is, but that's also, Joe, you've seen it. You see it going on in the world right now. What's being big right now? Big tech is buying up everything. You know what I mean? That's what they're moving to. It's going to be your Amazons. It's going to be, like with your Teslas with cars and stuff like that. That's what it's moving to.
I will not conform to electric cars.
You're going to see it. You see them making bids pretty soon and things like that. YouTube, with the YouTube TV and everything, they're going to be probably putting up bids for some of these too as well as you move forward every year. These things are getting bigger. And that does suck, because if there is one subscription you don't have, you're out on that game. You're not being able to get that game.
Yeah, it's terrible. That means everybody go to the bar.
Yeah,
I'll meet you there.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Yeah, that's our way of fight it, is go back out with each other and meet up and go to the bars. Absolutely. Which
the bars
we'll
now,
be doing some of
that's
those.
going to be interesting now, because now the bars are going to have to get business accounts with Amazon.
Right.
To get those Thursday night football games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be pretty interesting, huh? At least it's not pay-per-view.
Bastards.
No, but
Bastards. Just
bringing up again that playoff game with the Raiders, we get a review of that one too. Is again, like you said, you see that they play each other twice a season anyways, but also the way they were last year, but now what the Raiders have done on defense, but then also getting Devontae Adams on offense too as well. And with Josh McDaniels finally sticking with a new team and running his offense, Derek Carr with the new haircut and the mohawk kind of thing.
Thank God. Can we just say thank God Derek Carr got a haircut, and it's a good one. It looks good on him. But, Holy crap. He doesn't look like Marv from Home Alone anymore.
Exciting. Yeah.
Jesus.
So, I mean, it's going to be pretty crazy. I think it's going to be very exciting. I think them getting the new personnel in there is a breath of fresh air for them. That's going to be a cool match.
You got to wonder, like, he just purposely wasn't cutting his hair because he's like, I'm not cutting my hair until after we get knocked out of the playoffs.
Maybe it was a silent protest for what happened with
wife?
Gruden. I don't know.
I think it was the wife. I think the wife complained.
Maybe she liked it, and then he finally said no, or maybe she did complain and he finally got rid of it. Who knows? Not sure.
Another game I want to talk about is Niners-Cardinals, because that's always a great one.
Oh, yeah.
Niners-Cardinals with the changes that both teams have made, and we're still wondering who's the starting quarterback going to be for the 49ers. Is Jimmy G going to end up getting moved? Is he going to be the starter
I think it's more trending that he's the starter we're hearing right
honestly, now. Because what I'm hearing is that Trey Lance, coaching staff is not happy with him.
Right.
And they are extremely, and this is all rumors. We don't know for a fact, but what's being reported is that Trey Lance is being very disappointing in the coach's eyes. So if that's true, that means not only did you miss in the draft at 3rd overall when you should have took Mac Jones, which is where me and Jimmy had you taking Mac Jones, but now you've not only wasted your high-value draft pick, but now it seems to me that if this is true now, that Trey Lance might end up being a career backup before he even becomes a starter. It'd be ridiculous. But in all fairness, if the 49ers feel this way, and the most logical thing to do is to just name it. Name Jimmy G your starter going forward. Because if you are disappointed in where Trey Lance is in his development or lack thereof, you got to stick with a guy that's proven that can help win you games. And now that you have Deebo Samuel returning, sounds like he's going to play out this year with Niners, which is an interesting situation, which is still very fluid, by the way, because you do have till week 8 to trade him still if they decide to. If you don't, do you really want to try to tag a guy like that and pay that kind of big price tag for a guy for another year? So that's going to be an interesting decision that John Lynch and the staff for the Niners are going to have to make. But none of this Cardinals and Niners matchup I'm really looking forward to. It looks like it's going to be a night game, which I'm excited about. Cardinals defense got better, in the draft. And you got to wonder, like everybody's kind of wondering, is Kyler Murray okay? Is he going to get his extension? Yes, he's going to get his extension, just like any other decent quarterback gets their extension. So that's going to be ironed out. Stop worrying about it. And then what I'm interested to see is they did bring back A.J. Green. And with DeAndre Hopkins, who's suspended for 6 games, you got to wonder, too, with these free agent receivers now. A.J. Green's not going to be like that number 1 guy. You know what I mean? He's not going to really scare anybody for those first 6 games. So do they go ahead and maybe bring in a guy to kind of compete with A.J. Green? Maybe a Jarvis Landry. Maybe even Odell. Who knows? But it's something to monitor. But that is another matchup that I'm looking forward to. Jim, what do you got?
All right, one more for me. I've got the Chiefs and the Bucs. Again, you get to see the tale of two goats matchup here. The two guys that are on Madden 22 right there face each other here. Mano a mano, plus, another 50 so odd guys, too, that are part of the teams that everybody seems to ignore. But these guys, the old veteran, the new up-and-coming guy here, get to face off here. 2 juggernauts of teams without, though, Tyreek Hill and stuff like that, too. That is an issue here that they don't have that type of weapon here. But if you look on the other side, though, again, Mike Evans still there. They've still got Chris Godwin there too as well.
For another year.
For now.
Actually, no, they did extend him 3 years.
Yeah, I remember they did tag him. But
I don't know how they did it. But they did.
Yeah, but I mean, these two face off against each other. I think this is going to be a knockout, drag-out game here, too. Excited to see what week it falls into. That depends on what hype. But if this isn't, I think, a primetime game, too, I think that's nuts, too, as well.
And the funny thing is, too, about all that is with Tampa Bay retaining a lot of their free agents yet again, what are they thinking in the future? Are they thinking just here and now for a lot of these receivers, like Chris Godwin re-signing and everything? Because Tom Brady most likely is going to retire after this year. He already kind of flirted with it, next year. He already flirted with it this year and said, "Oh, I'm going to retire," and then it didn't last that long, and he's like, "I'm back."
Yeah. Plus, we're hearing the reports about he's already got a booth deal set up too,
it's all
as
done.
well.
As soon as he
Once
retires,
he retires,
he's going to Fox Sports. As soon as he retires,
Mm-hmm.
and he's getting paid a boatload of money to do it. So, but going forward, another game that I'd like
Fox
to
really
watch.
sticking it to Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. They're like, screw you guys.
Bills Rams. So you have Bills in LA against the Rams, the Super Bowl, Rams. So that's going to be a great matchup, I feel like. That's going to be fun to watch.
That's what I think a lot of people thought last year's Super Bowl was going to be. You've got the Rams going through there. Bills, a lot of people thought that they probably should have made it here and not had that loss in overtime against the Chiefs here and made it go further here. And not the Bengals, but a lot of people wanted to see that. And I think they have enough personnel and talent to get there too as well. So we'll get a little bit of a preview to see what it would be like when these guys face each other.
Tom Gazowski just chimed in, everybody.
All right,
one of our know-it-alls. Welcome to the show.
Boom, yeah.
He said Tampa Bay is thinking about going 17-0. Brady plays forever. Go Bucks. And then also says Godzilla Media offered Tom Brady. said no to my
Are y'all fucking serious
$350 million offer. Sad. Really appreciate you guys.
Oh man!
Thank you for tuning into the show. Really appreciate it. But yeah, I mean, I know it's rough. I know, you had a really substantial offer up there for Tom, and he still turned us down. Maybe next year. That's all I got to say. Maybe we can steal him.
Yeah.
But
17-0, yeah, that's not happening. We know it's all jokes and stuff like that, but plays forever. Who knows? He would be one of those guys that would figure out somehow the key to longevity to be even live forever, somehow. But again, this is a good matchup here. I like the Bucks Chiefs. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I think that's gonna be.
You
a
know
good
what
game.
I'm interested to see too is like we stay with the Chiefs here. Chiefs Raiders now is going to be different.
Oh yeah,
it's going to be way different. And I'm excited to see it because even though there's a lot of change for the Raiders right now in terms of personnel and obviously coaching and all that, I'm curious to see how fast they can gain chemistry. Like not Carr and Adams. We already know that's a shoe-in. That's going to happen. Waller's there, Renfro. I think the offense is going to be good.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm more interested to see defense with Patrick Graham and all these new pieces. Are they going to be able to come together quick enough to be a even better defense than they were last year? That's going to be interesting. That matchup.
That would be the key part right there. Again, and that's what you want to see, how they're going to handle like Patrick Mahomes again with one less weapon than he had before. You know what I'm saying? So it's going to be a different team. On the back end, you don't have Tyrann Mathieu back there anymore, too, who is like a key player, your quarterback of your defense, basically. You know what I mean? If you want to look at it, he did a lot of things. And when I talk about the Chiefs and the Bucks, he was getting in Tom Brady's face, too, and things like that every time, when they faced up, too. I mean, so he's a big key part of
now he's in New Orleans.
Now he's in New Orleans.
Right back home.
Yep.
So that's going to be interesting too. That defense got better, huh?
Yeah, right.
But another matchup too is Titans Packers. You got Matt LaFleur, formerly of the Titans, and his Packers going up against the Titans. I feel like that's going to be a better game, and a really close game. I feel like than what maybe some people might think. Some people might think, oh well, Aaron Rodgers and the Packers offense is going to steamroll the Titans. I don't think though.
Titans
I think this is
weird.
they're up and down kind of, but last year they were more consistent. They had a way better defense than anticipated, and their offense, I would say, was up and down.
Yeah, but
instead.
I think, but still consistently getting wins when your star running back was not there. You know what I mean? They were still doing it enough, and then when he came back, it was in time for the playoffs, and they were already clinched the number 1 seed.
Right.
Somehow. Yeah. Again, the Chiefs had faltered just that little bit to give it up, but there they were. Didn't do anything for them. Him coming back in the playoffs, it didn't do well for him either way. Yeah. But when you run into a buzzsaw of a team, though, too, that happens. A team that's ready. So, so the Titans, to me, especially now after losing, A.J. Brown there too, they're kind of a mystery. Yeah, I mean, I think still coaching wise, they got one of the most hidden treasures of a coach too, that really studies the rule books, everything else, much like Belichick. Like, he knows how to set up a strategy, and for him to get some of those wins with not having his star running back and even his wide receiving core on the same field at the same time. Last season, too, you forget, with the injuries that they had with Brown and with Julio Jones not even being really a big part of this offense like they had hoped when they signed him. A big kudos to Mike Vrabel on that one. So they're an intriguing team for me because I'm not sure what I'm going to get. I really don't know.
Well, we thought differently last year. We thought they weren't going to be as good, and they surprised the hell out of everybody. I don't think anybody had them being that good of a team last year, but they surprised us. And you know what? It's not going to be the only time it happens. Look at this season. I guarantee you there's going to be a bunch of surprises that we don't anticipate. We might think we have a team nailed down, and then sure enough they're going to become the number 1 seed. We're like, wait, where'd that come from?
Yeah. We shall see.
But other than that, as far as the rest of the games, we all know divisional matchups are all going to be fun to watch because they're divisional matchups. But that's all I got for prime games that are the best prime games that we have to look forward to, and that's going to change because as we further gain knowledge on each team and how well they're playing, this could all be very different. Midway through the season, we might feel differently about the Dolphins, or we might feel differently about the Jets for some. You know what I mean?
Right.
The Jets could be a surprise team this year after another successful offseason.
Yeah.
They definitely have a way stronger offensive line now. That's going to help Zach Wilson in his protection. Another running back added to that backfield to kind of help a dual threat type of situation there. And then let's see how much further those receivers can get better and develop. So
yeah, that division, I think a lot of these divisions, whether, even though the NFC is a little weaker than what the AFC has done, but I think with the draft and what they have done in free agency, that AFC East, I think when you look at it, Patriots have been snoring on a lot of that stuff, and they were probably going to take a back seat in this division the way Miami's been super active in free agency, and they still even have more money to spend if they want. And the Jets, what they did in the draft was really amazing too as well, and fill the voids that they needed. And maybe we can see this Robert Saleh defense of old that we have seen with the 49ers really take hold and do something to help out the quarterback in that offense if it does get a little bit of a slow start. But they've got tools around him to set him up for success. Yeah, so, yeah. I mean, we're gauging and seeing a lot of stuff. And like I said, I hope the Eagles do not get a James Bradbury and stuff like that, because what they've done in that NFC East, that's still anybody's game in that division. I give everybody an equal shot at doing something in that division.
I think we've noticed that this year more than any other year, that every division is tighter. Every single one. There's not okay, let's just discount the Texans right now. Let's just say that.
I would say even the NFC South maybe is a little down. Just because, again,
we'll see.
We'll see. Well, you've got the Falcons, which they are kind of in a rebuild right now. You know what I mean? Yeah, they did even draft another star wide receiver for them in the draft. But the Saints, now they've got their new they've got Dennis Allen as the head coach. So a lot of the guys coming back. It's Jameis Winston. Are we going to get the 30 for 30 guy? We're not sure. Is he going to develop better? Be that guy, less turnovers, better, smarter decisions, less mistakes. And then the Carolina Panthers right there too, moving forward with Sam Darnold with a full season too as well. On top of that, what are we going to get with that? Because then you just look at the Bucs; they've got to be the honest to God probably team that's going to take that division.
Yeah, most likely the Buccaneers. They're the favorites to take the division, but then I think it's going to be Panthers, and then it's a battle between the bottom two teams. So, and that's just because of uncertainty. We really don't know what the Saints are going to turn into because it's a new coaching staff, new schemes that are in place that are going to be put in place, and we don't know how they're going to play. Bottom line, you could say that about any team right now. There's been a lot of changes throughout the league. So, honestly, if anything has taught us, any season has taught us, is the fact that we don't know for sure and can make an accurate judgment on how a team is going to play. We assume the Texans are going to be the bottom feeders of the league, but they could surprise us. Think about last season, Davis Mills coming in as a rookie quarterback and shocking a lot of teams and winning some games when they shouldn't have won those games. So let's wait and see, guys. It's going to be a roller coaster of a season. I know that.
Absolutely. It's been a roller coaster of a ride for us. This episode's over. We had a lot of good conversations about the free agency and then these upcoming games. We're excited. The schedule will be released tomorrow.
Excited.
If you guys haven't yet, make sure you guys go to our YouTube and hit the subscribe button and also hit the notification bell, let you know every time we go live. Become a know-it-all. If you haven't yet, too, and you're still snoozing on us on Facebook, where the hell have you been, man? We've been here forever, and we're up to 760-something members here on our group.
763, I think.
So if you haven't become a group member, join us here on Facebook. Get some of the latest and greatest, not only news and updates and things like that, conversation starters, but also that's where our live shows are at as well, Joe.
Listen, and we're the best damn interactive show there is. So listen, you drop a comment down below. We are going to talk about it. You got a question? We're here for you. And it doesn't matter. As long as it's football related, we got you. You know, whether it's in the season, in the off season, fantasy related, we got you. So make sure you hit us up. Like my boy Jim said, Facebook and YouTube. And also, we are approaching 1,000 members on Facebook. We are very close to reaching our goal. We already surpassed what we used to have in terms of membership. And now we're headed to the big 1,000, the century mark, right?
Absolutely.
So let's make it happen.
Absolutely, definitely. And thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you guys next time.
Join us next week from 8 till 10 Wednesday nights for more Football on the Know with Jim and Joe.